Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
This is our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
Also, check out the podcast below in the description. Do it now.
All right, John, here is what Greg Cosell said to Ross Tucker about Justin Fields. I'll paraphrase. This clip got around the internet on Friday or Saturday, whatever day it was, over the weekend. And basically what he said about Justin Fields, he said, watching him, I think there are some concerns with him. He needs things to be clean and defined to be consistently successful. Talking about the pocket and, his first read doesn't get taken away, that kind of thing. But that was the paraphrasing of Cosell. He needs things to be clean and defined to be consistently successful, which I think part of the point of this conversation is that's good for the 49ers, but from a big picture, just what did you think? As you talk to people, are those commonly held beliefs?
Well, you know what's funny is I wish I could have this original thought on my own, but I saw a couple people on some of my timelines when this was kind of going viral that went, wow, this has some similarities to the vibe that we heard last year from a guy named Justin Herbert. And I think Josh Allen's were probably a little bit different. His was more inaccuracy. But just some of the stuff that we had just heard about Justin Herbert being like, just kind of picking him apart. Does he, it's just when it gets tough, the accuracy in the pocket. Like I feel some parallels right away with that, which I like. Now the difference is Herbert ended up going 6th, but could the Niners, I keep saying, we talked about it on Friday, like I'm counting the Eagles as a trade partner because my gut says right here on February 21st, things can change. They are in blow it up mode, reset it mode. And when you start throwing out Russell Wilson comparisons to Jalen Hurts, you're at least going to give him a year to prove it. To me, if Jalen had been a 4th round pick, I'd go, you'd agree they're a little committed once you take a guy in the 2nd round. I had a theory, Guy. My 2nd round theory, and I said this on the 3 and Out, just going back and reviewing the last decade, I would never pick a 2nd round quarterback simply because of this. They bring, in a weird way, 1st round expectations because the fan base, well, we drafted this guy high, even though you didn't draft him that high, but he's drafted way higher than like a 4th rounder. And then their likelihood of hitting, unlike 1st rounders that do produce, 50-50 at least, 2nd rounders are like 10% hit rate. And 2 of them are like Jimmy and Derek. Jimmy and Derek, and Derek's better than Jimmy, just has been doing it longer and played more. Derek Carr is the best version of 2nd rounders.
And he's rare because he and we knew this when he got drafted, his physical traits were 1st round physical traits, right?
And he went like in the mid 30s. Like he was right on the cusp. But so did Kaepernick, because a lot of times the trait guy who's still pretty good, but for whatever reasons getting nitpicked, whether it was his last name, right, falls to the 30s. I'd say Jalen was much more of your classic 2nd round pick that's like more than likely he's not going to work. But the expectations of the fan base. So my point is, I think the Eagles are going to be in sell mode. And when I say sell mode, like sell picks to get more picks, reset this thing. That's prime candidate Niners, 12-6, Justin Fields. When I hear the things Cosell said, that's why I pay Kyle Shanahan $10 million. He creates. Get him in the lab with this guy. Now, I under no circumstances, even if the Niners end up with Justin Fields in the draft, I'm not saying that he would have a Justin Herbert-like season. I am willing to say it might be a struggle, but I'm okay with taking a little bit of step back to take 3 or 4 steps forward.
Yeah, and I think the thing that the Niners would have that Herbert had, now you don't have Keenan Allen and Hunter. You don't have but you kind of do, right? In that you have Kittle. So Keenan's obviously led the league in catches multiple years, but you've got Kittle. You have good offensive weapons. Yeah. You've got guys around him that can make plays, and you'll have a good run game. It's really the more stuff that gets said that pushes Fields down potentially. It's not even the stuff that gets said. It's the more stuff teams believe that actually push him down, the better for the 49ers. You don't.
What do you think of my 2nd round theory? Because I would not mess with a Mac Jones or Kyle Trask in the 2nd round.
I don't hate it. I don't think I necessarily completely agree with it, but I do think where I agree is that you kind of get tied to a guy a little bit more than you would like to get tied to a guy.
I think Drew Lock's a good example, right? There's this elephant in the room of trying to force it to make it work, where the moment the guy is a 4th round pick or 5th, you pivot much faster. You are kind of Like when the Eagles, who I think are more than likely to do what I think they're going to do, it's because they do feel a little tied to this guy. And in fairness, he showed a little bit, right? It's not crazy if they roll in with this guy as their starter.
Yeah, no, he did show a little bit.
Derek was second rounder. Boom, immediately becomes a starter. Andy Dalton, same.
But I
these
think
guys, second rounders. Kaepernick.
Here's what I would say about draft picks. The guys that work are exceptions. Almost always. Like the only thing that's consistent is the guys that hit are the exceptions.
Not in the first round, though.
Like first round in the second round and on. So when it was like, well,
Yeah.
Derek worked, it's like, yeah, well, that's what you're trying to get. But the list of guys that didn't is much longer. But so is the list of guys that didn't work in the third. So is the list of guys that didn't work in the fourth. So is the list of guys.
It diminishes as the rounds go on, obviously. But the second round quarterbacks, my theory is predicated on the pressure that it puts on the guy as much as it is like all the percentages and stuff. Because there is like a weird first round pressure a little bit.
Right.
Which even the third, like the moment CJ Beathard kind of stuff, people move on. When it's a second, like I think Drew Lock is a great example right now where it's like they're kind of in no man's land, but they keep forcing it.
Pick.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Now, I would say if I were the Eagles, I would not. Now, maybe they saw enough that they're optimistic, and so there's no reason for them not to move forward with him. But I would
You think
not
Justin
hesitate.
Fields is there at 6?
My inclination right now is no.
You don't think he's there at 6?
My inclination right now is that he's not available at 6. But, we'll talk about Zach Wilson. I do think Zach Wilson's going to end up being the second quarterback. And I do think I wouldn't be surprised. Have you seen any reports on the number of teams? I've seen some teams have Zach Wilson ahead of Trevor Lawrence. Have you seen any where Trey Lance is relative to Fields?
I have not read one thing that has either one of those two guys sniffing the other two guys. Like it feels like there's the majority of the league has Trevor Lawrence set in stone. Maybe there's a couple outliers, rebels, or AKA teams that are drafting like 27 that it's like, oh yeah, we had Zach Wilson first. See, we were smart like 3 years later. Like that doesn't count. But there might be a team in the top 10 that legitimately likes Zach more than Trevor Lawrence. I don't think that's insane. I haven't seen any Justin Fields or Trey Lance that are I haven't seen one person wrote that either guy's 1 or 2 on a board.
No, Zach Wilson has solidified being the second quarterback all after he got done playing his last game. I shouldn't say solidified. We'll get to that comment. But yeah, I mean,
Justin was super high, remember, after the first playoff game, and then he plays Alabama, and it might not even be fair. He just gets obliterated.
I just think he
hurt? Remember, he got hurt in the other playoff game. Yeah,
he got annihilated.
Yeah.
I think it's since when are you getting perfect prospects at 6, let alone at 2 when it comes to quarterback?
I'd argue on a good draft there is one quote unquote perfect quarterback. Most of them are flawed, and we were talking before the pod. It does remind me a little bit, and this is where I think the Niners need to strike. And again, it's predicated. If Kyle doesn't like them, they're not going to do it. But if Kyle likes one of these guys, to trade up, the Trubisky draft is, listen, Ryan Pace was wrong, but I give him credit. He had conviction on the one guy, and he was aggressive, and he got it. He missed. The other 2 guys fell. Turns out, I mean, one guy's the highest paid player in the league history in Patrick Mahomes and feels like he's on pace to be like the second greatest quarterback of all time. And Deshaun Watson is already a star. Those 2 guys fell because Deshaun's arm was not viewed as great. It is still not, but he's just such a good playmaker and his instincts are great. And Mahomes was kind of like viewed, I mean, it's different than Herbert or Fields or Josh, but in the same vein of like a project. And those guys fell to 10 and 12, right? And 2 teams came up way farther than the Niners would and to get their guy. Now, have things changed 4 years later? We always say that, and then, like I said, it's just, when do quarterbacks ever go like 1, 2, 3, 4? Like that's not.
Yeah.
Because the Bengals are at 4, they need an offensive lineman.
Carolina,
the Falcons could easily. Carolina has to go up the least amount. So if they fall in love with one of these guys, and it does feel like there's a little pressure coming from the boss. Well, that's the thing with the Niners. Like, if Kyle doesn't like these guys, right, or sees like the big picture, they will not pick them. Like, they're not. Carolina might do it, and it might be a mistake, right? I just don't see if the Niners do it, I'd be like, well, Kyle fell in love with this guy.
Carolina feels destined to just roll the dice because they want to try, whereas the Niners won't roll the dice per se. They'll do it if it feels right.
Like, you agree the Niners wouldn't trade up if you're like, yeah, Kyle was like 80% in on him.
Right, where it feels like Carolina might just take a guy to take a guy.
Niners would be more likely to go from like 12 to 15 and add a second or something, right?
Exactly.
You're going to be pissed when that guy's a left tackle or something.
Well, at this point, they need it. Go back to what Greg Cosell said, though. Things need to be clean and defined for him to be consistently successful. To me, that's partly remember what does Kyle usually need? He doesn't historically need an overly talented quarterback, right? He just basically needs somebody that can do what he tells him to do.
He makes it clean and defined.
Exactly. So maybe who's like part of it, you hear that and you go, oh, well, that's a disaster. There's nothing we love more than players who make off-script plays. But so much of the game is just doing what's supposed to happen. And if it doesn't happen, doing the second thing. Now, I think part of what Cosell's saying is like, all right, the safety maybe did what you didn't expect. Can you – like that's what we talk about with Tom. But
I think you could play that game, though, of the last like 20 years with the majority of quarterbacks coming out. Are they perfect when things are not clean and defined? Probably not, right? Is I'd say Jimmy Garoppolo struggles.
Most guys aren't, right?
Yeah. I'd say a lot of guys in the NFL, it's like, well, they got pressure. Well, it's like, oh, probably not good, right?
Yeah.
What is Tom known for? Getting rid of the ball fast.
Right.
I mean,
that's the skill you
Tom,
want.
he gets rid of the ball fast. Why? Because he doesn't want to fuck around with shit around him.
But isn't that that's one of the best skills if you can get rid of the ball fast and get it down the field.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for a long period of time, Tom didn't really do that.
Until he got receivers that would go down the field.
Yeah. I'm not saying he can, but you don't have to do that right away. You could just build them basically make the offense remedial version of Kyle's and then just expand on it as you go.
Yeah, that's true. It's part of what the Niners lack, though. It's what Deebo Samuel being a glorified running back is not good for Deebo Samuel's career.
Well, okay, let's go back to Josh Allen, who needed a lot of work. Well, it took him a couple years, and now you just see this guy that just he went from couldn't make a play in a normal situation to Jesus Christ, he's jumping a guy, throwing it 50 feet across his. It's like, how's it? That to me, Justin Fields has that ability. Can you coach it up? And that's what are you paying Kyle Shanahan? I mean, you got 2 6-year deals, so I mean, I guess one got extended 3 years in, so that's 9 years of contract. What do you think that number is? $80 million to coach these guys?
You'd rather pay Kyle 10 and a quarterback first round money than Kyle 10 and a quarterback 30, and 100%. Give up 3 1s to get the guy.
Wouldn't you say if Kyle or McVay got a legit project that has talent, they'd be kind of scary? What McVay's getting hard on for the dude from Wake Forest.
I know this. If McVay ended up with Justin Fields, what we'd all say is oh no, right?
Fuck yeah, it'd be terrifying.